thinking about the topic of sexual exploitation, I kind of saw it as two separate things. I saw one part as our personal life with posting on social media, and then the other side of almost like the competition aspect of costuming, choreography, music. And I think that when we look at it, both of those things, some of the things are very separate, but there's definitely a connecting point to that.
I agree that how we present ourselves and how we want people to see us is also a thing too that we could, work on.
I think as our sport continues to grow and emerge, especially with social media really taking off during our generation, we need to learn some tools on how to protect ourselves and to present exactly what we want others to see. I think oftentimes when we talk to other people outside of our sport, they have no clue what we do as athletes. I think definitely putting out what we work on or how we train as athletes or giving an image for All-Star outside of just what people typically think of as cheerleading.
Yeah. So I think it's important for them to see too, not just all our pictures and our crop tops and at competition when we have our makeup done and stuff, but how hard we work inside the gym as well. We are actual athletes and we're proud of how strong we are.
So when you said that, that made me think of, obviously on social media, we're a very tech-savvy generation. And I've posted pictures before in a swimsuit. And I did that because I'm confident in my body. And I think as athletes, we work so hard as cheerleaders and dancers to attain that fitness level. And when we walk on the stage or we post a picture on social media, it's to say, I'm proud of myself, I love my body, I love what I am. And I think that maybe the issue at large is more so the context in which people are seeing that and we are presenting that.
And I think one thing that can help with that is when you're captioning the photo that you're posting, making sure that you're trying to put into light what you want others to see. So it's not always just a little two-word caption about being with friends, but also about, how much work you've put in and how athletic and showing that you put in all of that work and that you're proud.
I think also when we post pictures as athletes, we're doing it to show our strength and our confidence in what we do. But when people on the outside look in at All-Star, they're seeing these costumes and makeup, and it kind of gives us more of a weak look, we don't look, they just see the pretty makeup and the tiny outfit, and they're not looking at we're athletes. They just have a different perspective of the picture that we posted.
We all grew up or have been participating in this sport of all-star cheer and dance. But when we bring up the topic of people from the outside, it kind of reminds us that people don't really know what we do. And that kind of reminded me as well, I think even athletes inside our sport don't recognize that there are predators out there, that there are people who are exploiting our pictures or the things that we do. I don't know, does anybody else here feel like they've not really known that that existed in our sport?
I knew it existed, but there's a different, way we handle these type of situations, and then there's different ways we address it so that we can make everyone comfortable about having the conversation.
Just knowing that that picture you post can always be seen by anyone, that can be seen later in life, 20 years later if you're trying to get a job, that can be seen by no matter what you're trying to show it to or what you mean behind it. They could just get that picture and then show it and use it however they want without your control over that.
I think that there's just a line that we have to walk. And I think it's truly with everyone in our generation right now that we are in a time and age that things are happening that maybe we're not even aware of, and it's sad that it's happening, but we should be aware of that and put out our pictures with that type of a context. But then still at the same time, we should still be able to be proud of our body, be able to be proud of our fitness, be able to be proud of all of those things that we work so hard for, and be able to show our strength and our energy and our passion and just our power behind that, but at the same time, thinking about how we're doing it, not just thinking about what we're doing.
And let our pride show, because we know if we're posting a picture, like you said, maybe in a bathing suit, because we're posting it so someone sees our strength. If a team might ask maybe why we post it just for our strength, because they may post it for a different reason, be strong enough to tell them why we're doing it so the word can spread as well to keep everyone safe.
I feel like we kind of talked a lot about social media, but circling back to some of the competition aspects of things, what do you guys think about how there's sexual exploitation within the competition arena in like music, choreography, costuming? What do you guys think about that?
Sometimes you have younger teams doing certain choreography that they shouldn't, do, but the parents are like, or the coach is like, it's just cheer.
And it's not just the choreography that those younger kids are doing on their own teams, but as they watch some of the older teams and more the world's level teams do their own choreography, they like to copy the moves, and sometimes the moves are more targeted for an older group of kids, so it's harder to make it where they can also do it and feel comfortable doing it.
I mean, this is idea of like a lot of these moves end up getting a lot of the affirmation, like clapping and cheering, whatever it is. And I mean, of course, you can say you don't need to have those moves to get the score. It's on the score sheet. But at the same time, right, like if you're getting scored on energy, like crowd energy, and one team's doing it and another's not, then there's some sort of like, what you need to do to get up there.
Athletes definitely feed off the crowd's energy. So like, especially those younger girls, like once they get that attention from like these sassy motions they're doing, next time they go out, it's even harder, like they keep making it more and more sassy because that's what the crowd likes.
You don't know who's watching in the crowd or who's taking video and could be potentially even selling that.
Sure.
It's just kind of creepy and weird and something that I don't think we think about as being the athletes. And now in this time and age where social media, and I know, it's almost weird because it's hard to separate social media out of our lives, isn't it? Yeah. And so as we're talking about the competition aspect, it's easy to go right back into that social media where people can just see what we're doing. Where before, I started cheering as an alumni. I started All-Star Cheer and Dance back in the early 90s, and it's changed quite a bit. And back then, you used to have to be at the event to see, and now anybody can see anything, #cheer, and it's all there.
And the hashtags keep the location, or it lets you know which arena you were at or what time you were there too also. So it's really important that like the parents who are monitoring their kids' social media is that they turn all the locations off.
And I wonder, since now we're talking about it, and I think some of us are just becoming more aware of this aspect of our lives now too, I wonder what other solutions we could bring to the table for athletes that are currently going through these experiences, or just to protect them and ourselves from not experiencing sexual exploitation.
If your choreographer gives you a motion that is a little questionable, maybe talk to them about that motion, ask them how to do it appropriately, and then perform it that way every time, and know that that motion itself will be enough for your score sheet. You don't have to change it into the case that it could be hypersexualized.
I think that that's really a great point, because obviously a lot of this falls on coaches, choreographers, gym owners. And as athletes, I think it's sometimes almost daunting to approach people like that. Approach your coach and say, I'm not comfortable with this.
Or you have to have that confidence
absolutely
to go up to your coach too.
And I think it does start at the top, with coaches, with what they're deciding to have their athletes wear, what they decide for the music. But I think as athletes, we do also need to be able to be confident enough to have that voice and say, I don't think that this is appropriate. Because all the choreographers and coaches are trying to do is beat the score sheet. And on the score sheet, it's not saying that you need
to rub your legs or do all of that stuff. Yep.
And be confident enough to be the first to do it. It's okay, your teammates may think it's different at first, but use the opportunity to teach them or help them stay safe as well.
Absolutely.
I think it's bizarre that people, like athletes, are even like scared to just talk to their coaches about something like that. Like you should always have the confidence to do that. And at the end of the day, the coach's priority is your safety. And like, if you don't feel comfortable, you definitely need to speak up about it. And there's probably people on your team that feel the same way. So like seeing you do that, that's like setting
a great example.
And the coaches are in it for the athletes and are in it because they love the athletes. And I think that if athletes are able to use their own voices, the coaches will almost be more proud of them for being able to stand up and say, I'm not comfortable with this. And then everyone can come together and make a plan that will ultimately change that environment within All-Star.
And don't you think having that buy-in from the athletes, wouldn't that elevate the performance anyways?
Yes.
The cool thing that I think when we're all speaking about this is that eventually one day, a lot of these athletes that are gaining the confidence to stand up and take respect for themselves will one day become coaches.
Yeah, some gym owners, and they'll see like I was once in that position, so I totally understand.
If we start this positive now, it will continue on, and we
Yes.
can
It's
keep more people
slowly gonna
safe
grow.
if we educate them about how to stay safe. And we can still be proud of our bodies and proud of the images we have from competitions, but know that we all know how athletic this sport is, cheer and dance, all-star in general. And we can be proud of that and start and let everyone be proud of that and just show that.
I think honestly, the main thing that I get from all of this is that we want people to see what we see. And when we put something out there, when I put it out there and I say, I'm strong, and that's what I want you to see, or I put a picture of our athletes on our Facebook, I want them to see that they are strong. I think that we need to change the conversation amongst ourselves and amongst the community in general to see what we believe in and see where our eyes are seeing, that we could then change the conversation to less about the sexual parts of it and more about all the things we believe in, the life lessons, the strength, the power, the passion. I think that would really change this for the better.
It's like a new image for All-Star.
Yeah.
It's the perceived notion of everyone when you're posting those pictures, and it's looking at a picture of somebody in their uniform. And when you see them, it's thinking immediately, wow, they're so strong. Look at how much that uniform suits them. I bet when they go out on that stage, they have all of the confidence in the world. It's looking at a photo and seeing that first that I think is really the goal of everything right now.
When you see a post on Facebook or on Instagram and you see a picture that your teammate just posted, instead of posting fire emojis, post, you look so strong.
Yes.
Or, I love your smile. Yes, something that means something, because that's what All-Star means to me. Like, it's all of the things that we learn, and I think if we can do that, the younger kids are gonna follow.
I mean, I think practically too, right? Like, if you see something that you think might be misconstrued or misunderstood, I mean, I think as a peer and an athlete, you can be like, hey, like, just so you know, I took it as this. I think you might want to change that caption. Or, hey, just so you know, I thought this looked kind of a certain way, so maybe you want to change up the heading picture. Whatever it is, right? Like, keeping each other accountable and talking with each other, I think is...
If the athletes can maybe see that, predators could possibly see that as well and see it from that way. So if, like you were saying, you know, you can help your teammate out, that way a predator doesn't get to that picture first.
But we can still post those things. We can still be proud. We can still say, I love our body, but in an environment and a community that knows where we're coming from and sees what we see.
Like, we have a couple of men here, and it's a little bit of a different experience for us. Our uniforms even look different, but I don't think that necessarily leaves us out of the conversation in terms of being possible victims of sexual exploitation. And I just wonder if any of us as males have something that maybe they've noticed or want to bring and share about our experience and our perspective as males. Have you guys ever noticed or seen anything or felt uncomfortable? And because I know a lot of times it is a predominantly female sport, but we also are growing in numbers as males and want to protect ourselves as well.
I've had multiple times as a choreographer tried to make me do questionable motions in my dance, and I would just be like, no, I don't want to do that. And then they'll ask somebody else to do it, and they'll just take me out of dance. And that's just how I go, and that's all the questionable things I've seen. That's happened to me multiple times, and I've always just had to push it off and just change it up to the way I like it, so I don't get taken out of dance.
Okay, that's cool.
That takes a lot of courage, though, to be able to say, like, I'm not going to do that.
That takes confidence.
And that's okay to say if you aren't comfortable with it. It's okay to not do that.
And if your coach takes you out, puts you in the back, then that's your coach's loss. If they're not understanding, something makes you uncomfortable and they can't make it a way to make you comfortable, then maybe that's not the right team for you, or that's not the right program, or whatever the case is. So if your coach is not understanding, if any skill, a tumbling skill, no matter if it's a motion, jump, or a hair flip, if it makes you uncomfortable, your coach has to understand.
I love that you said that you changed it up, though, Jaden. You made it your own. And isn't that what it's about? Like, it's about enjoying what we do. So that's great. Like, it took confidence to say, no,
Yeah.
but it also took even more confidence to add your own flavor to it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
But what an inspiration to the other people who witnessed what you did,
absolutely.
right? Even other men or even the other women on your team too. So kudos to that. Hopefully other people will start taking
Yeah.
your lead on that.
And hopefully the coaches will then also understand that as well. I think the great thing is there's so many opportunities for education for coaches right now that I think that will start to trickle down. But even greater than that, the athletes buying in is going to be so helpful to the coaching staff at all the gyms and programs.
I mean, I feel like guys play a very unique role in all-star cheer and dance, right? Like, of course, we all need to be conscious about it, but I feel like, I mean, in my role even, I'm supposed to be like a bigger brother, right? Or looking out for, especially when you start being on the team for years and years and you start having more people coming through that you're kind of leading through whatever the process is, like looking out and being like, okay, like, are there creepers looking around, right? Like I'm always looking, okay, is someone looking over at my flyer? I need to step in front of that eye vision so that they can't see. Or like, okay, like is someone kind of out there wearing something that I feel like is maybe not the most appropriate? Maybe just mention it to her. I mean, we're not here to regulate, but like talking like, hey, you know, this is what I think. I'm trying to be here for you.
Friendly warning.
Yeah.
Athletes don't realize, like, at competitions and stuff like that, like, there are predators there. And, like, I think that's a big thing with your image and, like, having a crop top. Like, that's why there's a rule of, like, you have to put something over if you're not competing when you're walking around. And I feel like little girls really don't get it. And they're just like, why? This is my uniform. Like, why can't I walk around like this? But you don't know who's around, and it's, like, for your own safety, you know? And I feel like also coaches, they tell your athletes to not walk around like that, and like there's that rule, but they're not like giving you the why. Like they're just telling you. And I feel like if they gave a reason for it, more athletes would understand and be more cautious of that.
Everything nowadays kind of is just hypersexualized. So if we keep that in mind when we are posting, talking to teammates, that can just help us stay safe.
It helps athletes to hear of other people's stories where they might have dealt with it, because it makes it more personal when you hear of how somebody actually might have gone through something like that at a competition like where you're at, or at just through social media.
I did not care for that rule at all until I heard a story of something that happened to an athlete, and it scared me to death. And I always wear something over if I'm not competing.
I mean, I think it was some rule that I was questionable about, and I had called in and was like, yo, like what's going on with this? I want to know more, and I get a better understanding, but I'm pretty sure from conversation that I was like one of the only people who had called, right? So it's like, are we even like, I mean, of course we're curious, and I think USASF should definitely do a better job at letting us know, but also if we're curious, like feel free, talk to your gym owner, talk to whoever is creating these rules, right? And
Yeah, it's always okay to ask.
Well, and that's another point too, is oftentimes we say, why isn't there more information? And the funny part is, it is there. Right. That information is there, you know, and the gym owners have it. The program owners have that information, and the coaches, but does it always get filtered through in our practice? And what is the culture that we're creating as well? Because if we're just going along with society's hypersexualized, to Ashley's point, you know, does All-Star have to follow that way? Or can All-Star be a pioneer for leading the way for young men and women to really respect themselves and to care for each other?
Everyone's thinking, oh, it can never happen to me, or no, it can't happen to my friend, or that's not even a real thing. They don't even know if the person next to them is, you know, a predator, or, you know, someone from somewhere else. Like just how you said, anyone can buy tickets to our competitions. Just as the people who work in the convention center, you don't know if they're working there for, you know, just because they're a predator and they know that this, you know, building is used for cheer competitions. So things like that, kids have to look out for. And they also, with the videos and like certain things they do in the videos with posting them, even though it's a private account, they're screen record, screenshotting, and it always could get out.
And just like you said, like, you never know. Same thing, like when choreographers are coming into our program, they don't know us athletes like our coaches do, or like we know each other. And you never know somebody's story.
Yes.
And if they ask you, for example, when we're talking about like the guys, it's such a different dynamic in the choreography. Oftentimes they want the guys to do a partner dance with a girl that might be leaning towards a more sexualized movement. And you never know what that guy or what that girl's story is and why they might feel uncomfortable. And then to add fuel to the fire, being like, well, then you're out. Where did the care go? And where's the vetting of that person that we're bringing in, and why? Right? When we think about our routines, the themes, they can go any which way on the score sheet, right? We were talking about the score sheet earlier. It's not, we're all trying to win. It's a competitive sport, but at what cost? Right? And being a former athlete, somebody who grew up in All-Star and absolutely loved it, like I did All-Star cheer and dance, couldn't get enough. And I come back. I want to work in this industry because I loved it growing up. It helped build me and my character. And I want that for everyone else too. And to hear these stories of people who aren't experiencing it in that positive way, what can we do? Let's step up to the plate and be leaders and help one another. Go back into our programs and be that choreographer who cares. Be that judge who understands.
Obviously, our sport is very creative. And as you don't want to hinder creativity, you don't want to, take that away from choreographers or coaches or whatever. But when you combine suggestive music with maybe a little bit sexual costumes, and then the choreography on top of it adds to that. And if this team is performing at Worlds and they were the world champs, and then everyone wants to be this. So,
and that trickles down to the younger
it trickles
kids.
down all the way. So I think it really is just that full combination of all those things that if we can, even within our own program, just start with one and go to your coach and say, I think that this music is just a little bit too far. Or maybe you go to your choreographer and say, I just don't feel comfortable here. I feel like if we can just start with one thing at a time, it feels much easier to us and feels much easier to athletes to be able to see the change slowly, but surely.
They're doing
Absolutely.
so much, but when presented with somebody who maybe asks and says, oh, I'm not quite feeling that.
Yeah.
They might feel snappy because they're under a time constraint.
Or maybe they didn't even realize that it was coming off that way.
Right.
I mean, I do think that obviously, I see it from both sides too, because I choreograph and I coach as well, that sometimes when you're doing things like that, you just love the kids so much. You want the athletes to be able to have their best shot at success.
But you also
that
have to be
sometimes you
understanding.
might lose sight of the goal, of the ramifications around it.
Of the human behind the
Yes.
costume.
And I think that if we all recognize that coaches, choreographers, program owners, and athletes all need to work together and all truly should have a voice, and none of them are wrong. But if we can work together to come up with a solution, I think that we can all agree on something and walk the line while also still being creative and loving every great thing about our sport.
Helping each other and working together is the key, just like you said. I think. So I think one thing that was interesting is when we talk about the pictures and how they're being posted, right? We want to make sure that we're putting out an image of who we are.
We don't want to say don't post a bathing suit picture. It's more of how you pose in the picture. Even if you're doing something fierce or sassy, because little kids do follow us on social media. So, we don't want to make everyone in the cheer community uncomfortable by how we're posing in a picture.
Or not even uncomfortable, but little girls looking at that and being like, oh, like, look how pretty she is. Look how many likes she's getting. Like, if I pose like that, or if I post a picture looking like this, like, I'll get attention, I'll get likes, I'll be just like her,
That sounds just like competitions.
Yes.
It's like everybody idolizes these world's teams that are so fantastic.
Right.
And that trickles down to the younger ones. It's like you just scroll through social media, and if you see, even just hashtag All-Star cheer or dance, and then you see these younger athletes doing the stunt choreography. It's stunt choreography, no less, and they're rubbing themselves up and then posting it with a TikTok or making it into a contest on social media, and it just seems unhealthy. It doesn't seem like it's attracting the same type of love that we are looking for as athletes.
And it's sad because they're not doing it like they're not doing it to be sexy or
harmful.
Right. They're doing it because they want to be like y'all. They want to be like the top dogs.
It's like even with the stunt choreography, they tend to do the things that they see at Worlds, and everybody wants to be a world champion. And so now they're emulating these, making TikToks, doing these contests on social media, and it's sexually suggestive movements.
Especially on like certain social medias, like where they don't have certain restrictions. Like on it, I know on Instagram you can make your account private. On Facebook you can't make an account private, or it's just like Twitter, you can make your account private, but still people can still see like your profile picture or this and that, and they can blow it up and still see who you are. So you just have to be careful of those things.
I think when you're posting, it's really just about being aware of what can happen and the consequences, who's going to see it and try to replicate it. But it's also, you don't want to have to think that you can't post something because of how somebody else is going to perceive it. Because, you're human, you want to show everybody how you're being strong or how everything is around you, but you want to be able to think also of the consequences while still being able to post.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a conscious thing, right? Like, it's unrealistic for us to sit here and be like, yeah, people shouldn't post this, or sudden like we should tell people not to post it. But like, if it's an intentional, like, okay, I understand and I feel I want to post this for this reason, that's a little bit better than just people. A lot of times I feel like just post and don't realize what they're doing, what's going on, and that's when it's a little bit more of an issue, right? When they don't understand, then they get a comment that they're not thinking about, oh, should I be cautious, or follow, or a private message, whatever it is.
And I mean, we're human. We should be proud of our bodies. We're athletes. We should be proud of that. So we can post them. You just have to take that extra step and think about what they're going to see beyond what you see in the picture.
I think it's important when you're posting something to really think about, like, what are my intentions of posting? Like, why am I posting this photo? Why do I want to share this with everyone? I also think it's important to, like, put yourself on the outside looking in. Like, what are people who don't know what All-Star are thinking when they look at this photo,
I think really the main thing, going back to what Angel said, was thinking about the purpose behind it and also thinking about the context of the whole thing. So when you're posting a picture, maybe you're posting that picture because it was an amazing family trip in this beautiful destination. You want to remember that. Or maybe you're posting it at a competition and it was just such an amazing memory. But I think thinking on the outside, like you said, looking in, because obviously, when we post pictures, we think that they're just for us. But this is bigger than that. This is a larger issue. This is really a human rights issue when you think about it. That when we're putting things out there, people are taking those pictures and creating a story that isn't ours, or writing a story in the way that isn't how you intended it to be. So when I post a picture and maybe I'm in a swimsuit, because I know I've posted that before, I'm posting it because I say I'm strong, I'm powerful, or I'm in this beautiful place and I want to remember this. But I think that the important thing there is to make sure that there's context around it. Make sure that there's something there that it can't be changed or twisted into something that it's not.
Take into account the perspective. You've got your own perspective posting the photo and your why, but not everyone's going to know that. They aren't there with you. They aren't in your head. So it's also about having that photo and showing it, as a way that everybody else can perceive it the way you want them to, instead of the way that they probably will at first glance.
With the caption, like you were talking about before, or, making sure that whatever it is in a way that, number one, you don't want it to be overly sexual or overly, if you're taking the picture, I mean, when I do it, I think if I showed this to my dad, would I be okay with it?
Like she was talking about, we get to write our own story. That's our right, and we shouldn't let someone else write that for us. So when we take the picture and we have what we want it to be known for in mind, make sure that stays with that picture so that it can't be taken out of context, like she was talking about.
It's almost like when you're swiping on Instagram to choose which filter, while you're thinking of that filter, think about filtering your picture. It doesn't mean don't post it, but is this age appropriate? Does this portray my athleticism?
Think about your audience.
Your audience, yes.
Or later on in life, like you were saying, if you wanted to get a job or if you're going to college and just somehow this picture pops up and it's just like, oh gosh, I should have thought before, I'd done it. So we also have to hold ourselves accountable for what we're posting, because we know that the younger kids look up to us. So if we post a crazy picture, the little kids that see us in the gym that look up to us is gonna go do the same thing, and then
Or
it's
might
gonna
not respect you
or
anymore.
or it'll go start going down the line. They'll either lose respect for you or they'll try to imitate you. And we're not saying don't post, pictures in your practice wearing your sports bras or anything. We're just saying find a better way to pose in the outfits you're wearing so that it doesn't come off as sexual.
I think another thing is like, as athletes, when we post anything, we're representing All-Star. And like, whatever you do, like if it somewhat shows like more on the sexual side, that just pushes towards the idea that we're weak and that we're not a sport, like people looking from the outside in, they're just gonna see that we're weak and that it's not as serious as it is and it won't look very athletic.
I think that, the human rights issue kind of has two sides. So we have the right to post. We have the right to our own voices. That when I post something, I have a reason for doing that. But I think that ultimately the main thing is that we're not saying don't do that, because that's your right. You have a voice, you should be able to do it and say that you're proud and you're confident. But I think the big picture behind it is we don't want to give other people the right to change the story or to change our voice. So I think ultimately it's not saying don't do this, it's saying think about maybe what's down the road or think about the context in which you're doing it to make sure that your rights aren't taken from you.
We have the right, but the story we tell is also under our control, and we have to be sure to put out what we want.
And there's safeguards that you can take to make sure that it's not exploited. So maybe your account is private. You pick who gets to see the pictures. Maybe you have a certain mark on the picture so that it can't be exploited. Maybe your caption is different to make sure that everyone knows what you're going for. Because I do think it's important, especially as women and girls in our sport, to be able to say, I love my body, to be able to say, I'm proud of who I am, because that's something that is hard for females. It's hard for women to be able to say that. So I don't think that should be taken away, but we should be aware of how other people see us, but at the same time being confident enough to say, this is who I am.
And like you were saying, make your account private and also know who's seeing your picture. Know who your followers are. Don't just accept someone online that you don't directly know. That is another measure you can take to protect yourself.
I think it's a big thing for people to have a big amount of followers nowadays. Like everyone, like you're not cool unless you have thousands of followers on Instagram. But I think it's really important to know who is watching your account, and like if you truly don't know them, if you've never met them in person, like you shouldn't be accepting them. It is so easy to make a fake account. You can literally pull up a picture from the internet and put it as your profile, and it looks like this 12-year-old girl who cheers somewhere wants to follow you, and like they can literally just DM you and be like, hey OMG, like you cheer, I cheer too, like we should meet up, and it could be like a 40-year-old man. Like it's that easy. So
And also too, another problem that we're having in cheer on social media is that we all model for some type of clothing brand, and whatever clothing brand it is, kids love the clothing brands that Cheer has provided for us. And, they love to model for them, take pictures and stuff like that. Two, you have to watch out for people who make fake accounts and say, hey, I can help you become a such and such model if you do this or if you send me this. So like kids have to watch out for that too. No matter how much you love that brand, that is, brands just don't reach out, like that. So kids have to understand you can't just accept everyone's messages, even if it may look like someone don't accept it. Or if you did accept it and you felt like you wrote back and you felt like it was wrong, go to your parent or go to, an adult and say, hey, I messed up. How do we fix this? And, you learned your lesson from it and you held yourself accountable for it.
And I think it's so cool in All-Star Cheer and Dance that there's this big community. And I think that social media, I don't think that it's always a bad thing. That we're able to connect, we're able to, be friends with people from different teams, be friends with different programs. I think that that's really important and really special. I just think that when we are doing it, we need to be cognizant of the other things behind it. Don't stop doing it. That's one of the greatest things of All-Star, the friendships, the communication, that you're able to talk with somebody on a team from California while you live in Wisconsin. I mean, that's cool. I think that we just need to be more aware, and I think as athletes, if we can do that, and as coaches, as alumni, as all the people involved, if we can just simply know what's going on around us, I think it'll affect our choices for the better, and will also just allow the outside world to also see some of the things that we think and what we see as well, so that our picture that we put to the world is seen through our eyes and not theirs.
Well, and we know that the younger athletes are watching us too. So whether we do a motion and it is hypersexualized and that's not good, they are going to repeat that and we may not want them to. But if we do something good and take protective measures, they will also follow that. So if we start, it will also trickle down to them and keep them safe as well.
Yeah, and I think like going with that is like what Angel said about taking ownership and responsibility for your actions. And that's huge. And that is something that we really do want to have trickle down, is taking full responsibility for you as a person. You know, as we grow up, we learn how to be human. We learn when we're young how to share, and we learn how to treat people like we want to be treated. This is the new layer for our generation.